as-Saaleheen, today we're going to look at a few chapters, and it's all talking about trusts and being honest and being upright. And if you look at the way the Shaykh has categorized some of these chapters, it's as if he's done it in that systematic manner. So we'll see next week what he says, and then the week after, or the lesson after, he's going to start moving into talking about things, how you should behave with your family, how you should behave at home, and that kind of stuff. But here today we're looking at the chapter of fulfilling our trusts. We have a very long, interesting hadith here, or narration. And then we have what he's talked about in the prohibition of Dhulm, and how Islam treats it as a major sin, the types of Dhulm, and why Dhulm is so such a sensitive topic in Islam, and why it's so important that we stay away from it in the dunya and the akhirah. We're also going to look at the sanctity of a Muslim. So as you can see, look how he started. He's talking about being truthful and honest and rendering back your trusts, and then not oppressing, and then the sanctity of a Muslim. And you can see how they're all connected with one another. And that's where we'll stop today, inshallah. So there's 3 chapters. The first one, as I said, is talking about rendering back people's trusts and the command to be truthful in our dealings. And one thing that the Quran tells us, Surah Rahman, is that the whole of the creation is based upon justice. The whole of the creation is based upon justice. And that's from the justice of Allah Jalla wa Ala. If Allah Jalla wa Ala wasn't just, not that it's possible, but if He wasn't just, then the whole of the creation as we know it would be destroyed. And if Allah Jalla wa Ala is teaching that us as a lesson, what would happen to you? And this is exactly one of the things that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah talks about also, is that the son has been commanded. And if the son one day had free will and said, I'm not going to be just anymore, what would happen? The whole of the universe that we know of and we live in would be completely corrupt, even if it was just for a few minutes, even if it was just for part of a day. After creating the creation, and this is some of the ayat that here we have, after Allah created the creation, Allah gathered the creation together, the heavens and the earth and the mountains, and He presented, which was known as the Amanah. And the trust in Arabic, as I'm sure you're aware, is known as an Amanah. And He presented an Amanah to all of His creation. And most of it, and the Amanah was that you're going to have free will, you're going to have guardianship, and you will be accountable. You're going to be put in this zone of free will and accountability, and then you're going to be brought back. And whilst you are there, there's going to be halal, haram, there's going to be private matters, there's going to be public matters, etc. And then Allah's going to bring you back, and He's going to ask you about it. And if you're successful, you go to Jannah. If you're not, then you go to hellfire. Do you agree? So what happened is that the heavens and the skies and the universes and the solar systems, all of them, they said, no, we don't want that. We're not going to take that as an amanah. So then Allah Jalla wa Ala presented that to the earths. And the earth said, same thing, no, we're not going to do that. The mountains, how strong and how lofty and how stable and how hard they are. فَأَبَيْنَا أَن يَحْمِلْنَهَا وَأَشْفَقْنَ مِنْهَا. They were scared of it. They said, we're not going to do it, and this is too much of a responsibility for us to uphold ourselves. But what happened? Bani Adam stood up, وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانِ. We'll do it. And this is why Allah Jalla wa Ala, we're laughing, because this is exactly how ignorant we are and how oppressive we are. And this is exactly what Allah Jalla wa Ala says. When you said that, Allah Jalla wa Ala knew, and this is how He described you, as being dhaluman jahula.
Can you correct the ayah, inna?
Where?
Inna.
Where?
Yeah, inna, not inna.
Yeah, I'll do that after, inshallah. And Allah Jalla wa Ala says in many places that we have been, one of the biggest tests that we have to do. In actual fact, the whole religion revolves around us being truthful to our Creator and to us one another as subjects. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَؤَدُّوا الْأَمَانَاتِ إِلَى أَهْلِهَا, that you repay back your trusts to those people who deserve those trusts. And from the Mufassirun who have said that the trust here, the amanat, refers to everything, any kind of trust. So Allah has rights over you, and the creation have rights over you, and your friends have rights over you. And going to the hadith then, the Prophet ﷺ told us in a well-known hadith that the sign of a munafiq is 3. When he speaks continuously, what does he do? He's not truthful. He doesn't have the amanah when he speaks. If he says he's going to do something, he doesn't have the amanah. When you try and trust him, he doesn't have the amanah. In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ added the words, even if he observes fast and performs salat, and he asserts himself in religiousness, if you think, no, you look at this brother, yeah, he's really practicing, he's really good, and he's upon the right manhaj and all of that, but if he's got problems with amanah, then that is not there. The Prophet ﷺ has not recognized that as a form of Eman. In actual fact, it's a form of something which is the opposite. And it says in this encyclopedia of fiqh that Amanah, and they've basically defined what Amanah is, and they've talked about it in, a series of pages, but I've just summarized it, and they've put it into 3 different chapters. Amanah, in the religion as a whole, when it comes to fiqh, because this is almost sort of fiqhiyah, it's about 30 volumes, the whole encyclopedia. But when it comes to fiqh, when it comes to your transactions that you have with one another, is that it revolves around 1, 2, 3. Your finances, the rights that you have, the honor, and the speech, and responsibility, maintenance, all those kind of things that you would have over one another, and the trusts and the secrets that you give for one another. And this is where basically you will see, even in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, nifaq heavily revolving around these issues. Munafiqs, they used to fight one another because of finances. They used to fight with the mu'mineen because of trusts and secrets. And the Prophet ﷺ also told us that the sign and the times will come, and one of the biggest things, one of the very first things that was lifted, what do you think was the first thing that was lifted? Salat, Siyam, Amanah. The Messenger told us Hudayfa, and Hudayfa is the one who's been told about all of the fitnas, who the munafiqun were, etc. And he told him in this hadith, I have seen one being fulfilled, and I am waiting for another to happen. So the Prophet ﷺ told him that something's going to happen. I've seen one already. And he told us, that the Prophet ﷺ told us that trusts descended in the innermost root of the hearts of men. Then the Quran was revealed, and they learnt the Quran, and they learnt the Sunnah. Then the Prophet ﷺ told us that this was the golden period, when these people were extremely truthful. It was placed into their hearts, then the Quran, and then the Sunnah was poured in, and then it just became these beacons and lights of truthfulness. But then the Prophet ﷺ told us that it will be removed. The man would have some sleep, and amanah will be taken away from his heart, leaving a faint mark or impression. The point here he's making is that it's going to be taken away so subtly and so quickly you won't even realize it. It's a long hadith, and I've just summarized it. The people would enter into transactions with one another hardly, and hardly a person would be left who would return things entrusted to him. And they would look like an honest person until it will be said, such and such, there is a such and such person in a tribe. I know one person that who is upright. It'll come to, what the point here is, it'll come to such a stage where you deal with other people and you won't find somebody who is trustworthy. Someone's always going to rip you off. Until it gets to a stage where you think, well, there's probably some person in a faraway village or a faraway city, yeah, he is trustworthy. You might have to travel a long distance to meet that trustworthy man and deal and have a transaction with him. And they would also say about a person how prudent he is, how upright and how religious he is, how handsome he is and how intelligent he is, whereas in his heart there is no Eman. There is no Eman. Justice can only be brought about if you are sincere and if you show mercy with one another. That's the only way that you can have Amanah. If you don't have sincerity and mercy towards your brother, there is no way that you're going to look at him as an individual that you want to respect and give him those trusts. But the Prophet ﷺ has told us, one by one, all of that's going to be lifted. Sincerity will be lifted, justice will be lifted, mercy will be lifted, brotherhood will be lifted, Eman will be lifted. But what will happen in the hereafter? The Prophet ﷺ has also told us that there is a severe warning for those people who don't take people's trusts seriously. Amanah and ties of kinship will be sent forth on the Sirat. And they will stand on the sides of the Sirat, and this is the bridge that will be over the hellfire. All of us have to go over it in order to enter Jannah. And some people will pass through it, and some people will not pass through it. I ransom you. So then Abu Hurairah asked, what is this lightning going to be like, those people who travel across? The Prophet ﷺ said, have you not seen the lightning that goes through the twinkling of an eye? So the point here is that that Amanah and that relationship that you have with people will go past on that bridge. And if you are not able to catch up with that Amanah through your deeds, then you will not be successful in getting across that bridge. Allah will promise success for those people who want to restore him. Now this is the long narration. Abdullah ibn Zubair, one of the companions and the close relatives of the Prophet ﷺ, towards the end of his life, as we all know, the companions got involved with a lot of differences with one another. And he himself was getting ready for the battle of Jamal, which was an incident, unfortunately, that took place where people got killed, etc. And he himself, and this is the way that the Salaf were at that time, went reluctantly. They said that people are going to go there, and some people are going to be oppressed, and some people are going to be wronged on this day. But he told his son, if I don't get out alive, and I fear that I don't get out alive, you need to look after my debts. You need to look after my debts. So his son thought, okay, and then he left a will, and he said, look, there's 1/3 left for my children, but everything else I'm calculating is going to go towards my debts. So then he kept instructing him as the battle is going on, as they go into the battle, and he keeps telling him about my debts, about the debts, don't forget about the debts. And then he said, my son, if you find a hard time in paying off my debts, then ask my master, Abdullah ibn Zubair's master, for help. So his son at that time thought, who's his master going to be? He's a free man. I don't understand what he's saying. But then when he asked, and he said, Father, who is your master? He said, Allah. By Allah, whenever I faced a difficulty, so then he passed away. Then he said, whenever I faced a difficulty in paying off his debts, I used to supplicate, Oh Allah, O Master of Zubair, you are the one who loves Amanah, and this is your slave who wanted to uphold that Amanah. Discharge him of his debts, and he would find it being discharged. So Zubair, when he passed away, he was martyred, and he had no money left behind. But what he did have are homes in several places. He had a home in Gaba, he had 11 houses in Medina, he had 2 in Basra, 1 in Kufa, 1 in Egypt. And the reason why he cranked up a huge debt is because people used to come up to him, and he was a trustworthy person. Obviously, he's from the house of the Prophet ﷺ. And when they used to come up to him and they say, look, here, we want you to look... At that time, obviously, there were no banks. So if you've got a large amount of money, I'd go up to Nabi and say, look, can you just look after this money for me in one of your houses or something? So Abdullah Zubair, what he used to say, he goes, no, I'm not going to look after it, it's a loan. It's a loan. That way, I'm 100% sure that you're going to get your money back. So what happened was, when he passed away with a huge level of debt, equivalent to 2,200,000. I mean, that would be a lot of money today, let alone at that time. So his brother, so he went to his son, and he said, nephew, how much do you have? How much is the debt for Abdullah ibn Zubair? So he didn't tell him, and he said, it's just 100,000, when in actual fact, more than 2 million. And just on 100,000, Hakim ibn Hizam said that by Allah, you will not be able to fulfill paying all of these debts. So then what happened is that he continued to supplicate. And there's one particular land that he had in Aqaba, which was worth 170,000, he ended up, through the will and permission and the barakah of Allah, selling it for more than 1,600,000. And this is because of the Amanah. So what would happen is companions used to come up to him, people used to come up to him and say, look, okay, he owed me such and such, he owed me such and such. So what he did is he sold off bits and bits and bits. And at that time, Muawiyah, radiallahu anh, was looking at the whole situation. And he's like, let me know when you've only got a little bit left. Let me know when you've got a portion left, when you've got a portion left. And then, at the end of it, everyone kept coming, and they started buying for 100,000 worth of shares, 100,000 worth of shares, until the end, when he bought 600,000 worth of shares, Muawiyah. He ended up selling it for 1,600,000, when it was actually only worth a fraction of that. So when Abdullah ibn Zubair had his debts paid off and the inheritance was distributed to him, he said, I will not do that until I announce during the 4 successive Hajj seasons that... So basically now he's still got a lot of money left, and he's paid everyone off, and he's paid the inheritance off, and he's still got a lot of money left. So he said, I'm not going to touch this money. And every Hajj that used to come by, he used to say, look, this is the money that we've got. If anybody still owes, if Abdullah ibn Zubair still owes anybody money, come forward. For 4 years, he made that declaration. And then he passed away, and then he gave it out, and he ended up having 4 wives, and he passed away. Each of those wives ended up having 1,200,000, and his total property amounted to 50,200,000. When Abdullah ibn Zubair, when he was passing away, was saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. And his son was like, I don't know what he's going to do. And his brother came and he said, 100,000, that's his debt. He ended up having 50 million. Because of the barakah of Allah, because of the sincerity, because of the mercy, because of the justice. This is Amanah. And now we know the prohibition of oppressing one another, and the command to repel oppression in the Sharia is something which is very serious. And Ibn Rajab rahimahullah said that oppression is of 3 types. I'm sure you could probably gather this much already also. Is that oppression against the Creator, shirk and kufr and nifaq and innovation. Oppressing yourself. How would you oppress yourself? Committing sins, innovating, shirk, etc. And oppressing one another. So when people talk about oppression, they normally think about this one. When there are things which are actually greater than that, and which are things which will probably land you in the hellfire and some serious trouble in the dunya and even in the akhirah, which is probably more than that. I'm not trying to downplay oppressing one another, but there is something which is higher than that. Allah says in the Quran, مَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِنْ حَمِيمٍ وَلَا شَفِيعٍ يُطَاعٍ. On the day of judgment, those people who oppress will not have anybody who he would consider as a close friend, and nobody who's going to come to his aid. وَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِن نَصِيرٍ. And they have no helpers. In the hereafter, his master is the one that he is going to answer towards. And because the one who harms in the dunya has no concern for the akhirah, Allah has cut those ties when he goes to the akhirah. Beware of injustice, for oppression will be darkness on the day of resurrection. Imam an-Nawawi said that on the day of judgment, the only thing that will make you successful, what do you think is going to make you successful on the day of judgment? Your car, your house, how many people you knew? The only thing that you're going to have on the day of judgment is light. That's the only thing. Not even your deeds, not even your scroll, because all of that will be presented to you afterwards. You don't know where you stand, but the only thing that you will have with you is your light. It's only light that will benefit people in the hereafter, Imam an-Nawawi saying. Therefore, being oppressive, the more oppression you have, the lesser of the light. Shirk, no light. Eman, Tawheed, but oppressing yourself, weak light. And that a person could potentially have in the hereafter. So that what you're having now, Allah Jalla wa Ala, like we've seen before, here's the Amanah, do you want to take it? Yes, okay, take it. But you're going to be very self-oppressive and ignorant when you take that. But Allah Jalla wa Ala, through His mercy, when you pray 5 times a day, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, it's not like you've prayed 50, you have prayed 50. And this is from the mercy of Allah, that Allah is giving that chance, Allah is aiding you, and Allah is pushing you up. He's giving you that leg up, and He's increasing you in your light. So how oppressive can it be that a person comes on the Day of Judgment, he hasn't got much light, or he's got weak light? Because he doesn't have mercy towards other people, he doesn't see them as being respectable human beings, or animals even. Justice is out the window. But that's just towards one another. If you respected these, then you would end up respecting that one. And if you respected these, you will not be falling in what Imam Nawawi is talking about here. Hadith 201, on the day of resurrection, the rights will be paid to those people who had their due taken from them. Even to the extent that if one sheep had a horn, and another sheep didn't have a horn, and that one oppressed that one, Allah Jalla wa Ala is going to hold that to account also. In the final Hajj, the Prophet ﷺ, this is part of a very long hadith, and he said, listen and pay attention. Allah has made your blood and your properties and all of these haram for you on this day, just like the days of Hajj and this city of Makkah is haram. It's something which is very serious. Nobody who says La ilaha illallah could even think about going to Makkah and doing something which is sinful, even if he's like a celebrity singing music or a drug dealer. When they go to Makkah, they're on the best behavior. The Prophet ﷺ is saying here that this is how your brother should be towards your brother. Whoever asserts unlawfully even a handspan of land, he will have that placed around his neck 7 times on the Day of Judgment. Handspan. Handspan of land. It's literally just something like a meter, less than a meter. So imagine people are taking, houses and... Verily Allah gives respite to the oppressor. And from His mercy, He wants that oppressor to repent. He's giving him a chance. But when Allah Jalla wa Ala seizes him, and that justice and that mercy kicks in, and Allah, from His wisdom, stops allowing him from carrying on from oppressing, then Allah will grab him in a way where he cannot escape. And then the Prophet ﷺ recited this ayah from Surah Hud, such is the seizure of your Rabb when He seizes the population of a town when they're doing wrong. Verily His seizure is painful. And this comes within the context of Nuh and Hud and many of the Anbiya that are mentioned in Surah Hud. So the point here is that Allah Jalla wa Ala is giving every single oppressor a chance to repent. And it could be that Allah Jalla wa Ala, if He wanted and He wouldn't be being oppressive, He'd take every single oppressor, including ourselves, minor and major oppression, and He'd hold you to account for it right now. But Allah is giving us respite. So now you might look at this and you might think, yeah, well that tyrant, he's going to get it one day. But that applies to every single one of us. We can't just look at that hadith and think, yeah, Allah's going to get him. But then what about you? Are you being oppressive? Because remember, we normally think about oppression and people throwing bombs on each other or people taking each other's property, etc. But what about all of that? Remember, Sa'di said, oppression increases and multiplies sin. When a person oppresses another, it doesn't stop there. That's what Imam Sa'di is saying. That oppression will always snowball into something which is far bigger. And it will multiply in the amount of sins that are being created. So for this reason, oppression is multiplied, and also the sin which stems from that oppression is also multiplied. And this is why the punishment of Allah when it comes to oppression is so severe. Beware of the supplication of the oppressed. When He sent Mu'adh to Yemen, He told them, be very careful. You're going to a group of people, they're very, very poor, and there's a lot of oppression amongst them. Even though they're from Ahlul Kitab, if they make a dua, there is no hijab between them and Allah. Non-Muslims, people who haven't even accepted Islam yet. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, all of mankind, both believers and disbelievers, if they were to ask Allah, then it is very possible that their supplication will be accepted even if he's a disbeliever. If the disbelievers ask Allah for provision, He grants them provision and He gives them water. If they are asking Allah alone, Allah Jalla wa Ala even answered the dua of Iblis himself, give me respite until Yawm al-Qiyamah. وَبِإِزَّتِكَ, I'm asking you by your honor, let me live. He let him live. Iblis. So how about those people who are being oppressed in the dunya? Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah is saying that all of mankind, believers, disbelievers, irrespective, if you are being oppressed, then there is no hijab between you and Allah. By Allah, number 209, in whose hand is the life of Muhammad alayhi salam. If any of you took anything wrongfully, he will bring it on the day of resurrection, carrying it on his back. I will not recognize any one of you on the day of resurrection with a grunting camel, or a bellowing cow, or a bleating ewe, sheep. And the Prophet ﷺ will refuse to look at these people. They will have to carry that oppression, that what they took unlawfully, on their back on the Day of Judgment. And then they will bring it and they will be exposed in front of mankind, and they will have to deal with it and talk it out in front of Allah Jalla wa Ala, whilst that person is being humiliated, whilst he is carrying on his back. 210. He who has done wrong affecting his brother, honor, or anything else, let him ask forgiveness for him today, before the day of resurrection, when there will be no dinar and there will be no dirham. Again, it's about light. On that day, it's just about light. If he has done something good, then what will happen is that person will have now a chance to take from his good deeds. Because if you've oppressed, you have to pay it back. You have got nothing else to pay back except through light. Take some of my light. How, if I give you a £10 right now, I've lost that £10, I'll get it back in my life. It's £10, even if it's £100, even if it's £1,000, even if it's... But light, you can't get that back. Because that light is the conclusion of your life. That light is basically why you ever existed. And on the Day of Judgment, that's the Day of Judgment. That's not the day of amal. That's not the day of acting anymore. So if you lose light on that day, that is going to be the hugest and the worst feeling of regret that you would ever feel. Because now you could lose some money, but you soon forget about it. You could lose something that is beloved to you, but you can soon replace it. But this, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, you oppress one another, whether it's through your honor, whether it's through some physical, whether it's whatever it could be. On the Day of Judgment, that person will come and he'll have free dibs at your light. If you have no light, then he's going to put burden of his darkness on the oppressor. There is no virtue in those people who are oppressed. Now here there's some narrations, and I feel that all of these narrations here is talking about the Prophet ﷺ, talking about companions that were close to him and beloved to him, and Allah said about them, radiyallahu anhu wa radu an. But despite that, the Prophet ﷺ is talking about some of them and how severe oppression is. 211, a Muslim is the one whose tongue and hands are safe from other Muslims. And the muhajir is the one who refrains from what Allah has forbidden. This is the true definition of what a companion or what a muhajir and what somebody who is virtuous is. So it's not just about whether you have a name tag or whether you follow a particular masjid or you listen to a particular scholar or whatever. It's not about labels. It's about the way you live your life. It's about your tongue, and it's about your hands, and it's about the way you treat other people. 212, a man named Khirkhirah, who was in charge of the personal assets, I believe, of Messenger of Allah when he passed away. And the Prophet ﷺ said, he is in the hellfire. So some people went to his house and they were amazed that the Prophet ﷺ had said about somebody who had access to his house that he's going to be in the hellfire, and they found that he had a stolen cloak, a jacket. And the Prophet ﷺ has declared through his prophecy that this person is going to be there. Thereupon he said, in another narration, your blood, and this is from the final khutbah, your blood, your property and your honor are all haram for you, just like this day is haram, and this city is haram, and this month is haram. You will soon meet your Lord, and He will ask you about your deeds. So do not turn to disbelief, striking the necks of one another after I pass away. What is the greatest form of oppression is when you actually physically hate one another. Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah, said that, okay, so now a person might ask, okay, well, I've done something wrong, and what do I need to do to recuperate that? I mean, do I go back to him? Do I go up to him and tell him, look, I've got some of your stuff? What you need to do is you need to return whatever it is, if it's physical. If it's not physical, if it's metaphorical, if you've backbitten him, if you've challenged his honor, etc. Hasan al-Basri said the expiation for gossiping and spreading rumors and lying against other people is now to exchange that bad for good. Somebody may have said something bad about another person for a very long time, but now he makes dua for him, makes istighfar for him. He says good things for him in public rather than saying bad things. And there's hikmah in this, because if you go around saying, well, brother, I called you this and I called you that and I did this and I did that, then that's not going to be productive, is it? It's going to make things worse. So here, the point here is not that you expose yourself. The point here is that you restore honor. 2:14, Allah decrees the hellfire and the Jannah for the one who accepts the rights of a brother by taking a false oath. One man asked the Messenger of Allah, even if it should be an insignificant thing, the Prophet ﷺ said that even if you took a miswak out of oppression, even if it was a pen out of oppression, then you will be taken to task on that Yawm al-Qiyamah. So here's the question, what should you do if they are oppressed? And then we've just answered that. You should ask for pardon and forgiveness. You need to physically return whatever it is that you took. And you should make dua for that person. What should a person do if they are oppressed? Let's change the question slightly. Well, that is the question. What should you do if you are oppressed? Now, the ulama have said that there are three scenarios. Either you can forgive, but that is only on the condition if there's going to be betterment that brings about. So if a person has had a crime committed against him, and you are the victim, and the criminal is there, and the criminal genuinely has made tawbah, and you think that you give him benefit of the doubt, and you can see that he's changing, etc., then it's actually better for you to forgive that person. However, if you feel that, okay, so let's say not forgive or not pardon, if you think there is no betterment, then you do not pardon. So if a person has oppressed you, and now they've come up to you and they've said, I've done such and such, and you feel that the person is not going to get any benefit from you pardoning them, then you can take them to court. Now again, these are some of the things that you would have within an Islamic framework of Sharia and having a qadi, etc. But these are, it could be applied to you in your daily life also. So if somebody robbed you, for example, it might be better you think, you know what, okay, just keep the money, man. Make dua for me. And if that will make him strong in his Eman, that is better. If that person not really shows any remorse, take the money back. If you are not sure, then having patience and forgiving is better. Because that's the level of the Prophet ﷺ. He had every single chance to bring the munafiqun to task, but he didn't do that. And some of the ulama said that he didn't know exactly how many munafiqun were. Some of them said that he knew who was who. He knew about 12 and there were actually about 15. Some of the ulama said that there was more, some of them said that there was less. But generally they are agreed that he didn't do it because it was something which was personal and he left it. And he was teaching us that pardoning and forgiving is better. Is it permissible for us to make dua against the oppressor? Now the ulama have said also here, just like this, so this is talking about forgiving the oppressor. So I'll say forgiving the zalim. But now here we have another thing, this is very important, because when people when there's a calamity, and unfortunately it becomes very often now, against the Muslim Ummah, they start making dua against the rulers of Burma, and they start making dua against the rulers of Syria. But is that allowed? That's the question. Dua against the oppressor also has some element of detail to it. So now the ulama have said that if you feel that the oppressor will change, then you don't make dua against him. Dua against him in person, but you make dua against the oppression. And this is what we learn from the Quraysh also. The Prophet ﷺ used to make dua against some of the Quraysh, and Allah says, Laysa laka min al-amri shay. So you have no say in that. Why are you making la'na against some of these people where Allah is actually going to change them? But if you feel that they won't change, you said, alright, here, no change, so then you can make dua against them and their oppression. So you will find many of the ulama making dua against Bashar al-Assad and all these people. May Allah give them what they deserve. If you don't fear that he's got so many times that he could have changed. He's been doing this, he's been killing people, little children, 10, 15 years. People have tried to mediate, people have tried international politics to get involved. He's still not changing. We don't see any real change in him. We can make dua against him. But that's not how, and this is one of the biggest things, is that Imam Ahmad, when he was oppressed, and he was oppressed often in his life, his sons actually once came up to him and said, why do you make dua against this person? Look how pious you are. And he said, have you ever heard your father being insulting and abusive towards other people? That's not how the believer should be. So now here we're talking about this being the default, and this being the default, and all of this being connected to ikhlas, and to Allah Jalla wa Ala. That's how the believer is. Sayyid ibn Jubair said, do not supplicate against a believer for bad to afflict him. This is a form of transgression. Again, here, we are now, that statement of Sayyid ibn Jubair would be here. The second one. So if your brother is being oppressive and you feel that, maybe he can change, let's give him some nasiha, etc. Making dua, look at this man, he's just done this and that, let's make dua against him, let's say bad things about him, let's go around telling everyone, let's put it on social media. That is actually a form of transgression. Rather, what you should be doing is having nasiha, having sabr, make dua for him, make dua against the act of oppression, but not the oppressor. Hadith number 215, whoever amongst you is appointed by us to a position and he conceals from us even a needle, or even less than a needle, it will amount to a misappropriation and he will be called upon it on the Day of Judgment. So a man from the Ansar stood up and he said, O Messenger of Allah, take back from me your assignment, because I don't want anything to do with, us and the wealth. So that's what happened to you. And the man replied, I have heard such and such. Your statement of you saying such and such. So he said, I say that even now, whoever from amongst you is appointed by us in a position, and he should render back all of his trust, big or small, and whatever he has given, then he should take, and he should desist from taking anything which is unlawful. This is talking about the war booty. So if a person has gone into another country, he's been part of a battle, and he's basically, for example, gone into someone's house, found a jacket or something, and took it for himself, and then carried on fighting, for example, that's not allowed. You have to bring it back all to the Amir. And then the Prophet ﷺ said that whatever you are given, then render back everything as trusted, big or small, whatever you find, give it back. And whatever he is given, then he should take it. So then when the Amir says, this is your share, this is for you, then he should take it. Why is that important? Because even the martyr will have all of his sins forgiven, except for things that he has taken unjustly. So you could be doing the best deed in the whole world, but if you are being oppressive and you are not being truthful in your trusts, then all of that's going to get eradicated. Whenever they came to a man about whom they said so-and-so is a martyr, the Prophet ﷺ declared, no, in actual fact I have seen him in the hellfire because he has taken something unjustly. Yes, if you are martyred, another hadith, if you are martyred while you are patient, hopeful of your reward, and march forward without retreating, unless if you owe a debt. Look at all of this. People have left their homes, they might never see their families again for the sake of Allah, but they actually end up in the hellfire. It says here in this book again, this encyclopedia, repentance in the sense of regretting what one has done and resolving not to do again. That is tawbah. Tawbah, like we've seen before, you stop now, you have remorse for the past, and you have a promise to yourself and to Allah that you're not going to do it again. But if you have rights of other people that are owed, then you must pay that back. And we looked at that before also, that you must give these back. Another narration here, similar to what we've seen before above, and the Prophet ﷺ came to redefine for us the concept of bankruptcy. Who is a bankrupt person? So they said, no, there's somebody who has no money, no wealth, and then the Prophet ﷺ, that's not bankruptcy. Because bankruptcy you will see on Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's about the light. You have a lot of light, you are rich. You have no light, you are bankrupt. Now bankrupt in the sense that you were rich, but it got taken away from you. Why? Because he insulted one person, or he reviled another person, or he unlawfully took another person's wealth, or he shed another person's wealth, or he beat another person. All of his light will be taken away from him until he is now bankrupt. He had it, he lost it. Success in society is also revolving around the amount of justice that you have. The more just society is, the more successful it will be. And we are seeing this now, how things are slowly changing, where justice and success is kind of like going down because of the lack of Amanah and the rise of oppression. One brother was actually telling me that he actually went to a DBS training thing, yeah? You know what DBS is, yeah? When you have to deal with kids. And there was a guy there, he's probably actually going to listen to this, but there's a guy there, and he was from EA Sports. And now the question came up, and this brother was asking now, I want to run a youth club at the masjid, and the game is for 18 plus. None of the kids are 18. It's between 8 and 15, the youth club. Can I show, or can we play this game, even if there are guardians there, and if there's parental consent? So this question went out in the classroom. Most of the people said, yeah, it's fine, it's just a mark 18, it's just a rough guide, it's nothing that bad. Most kids are exposed to worse and that kind of stuff, and they're in control of it, no harm. This guy from EA Sports, you know what he said? He goes, these people who design these games, especially fighting games and shooting games and that kind of stuff, they have to think, in order for this game to be successful, they have to think of missions which are as graphic and gruesome and as much as violent, as much as sexually oppressive as possible. I don't know, I don't really play games, but then we started talking, and he started talking to him. Like, for example, when we were younger, we had games where you get bonuses for, killing people. I'm sure that's there already. Stealing people's cars, robbing banks, and that kind of stuff. But now it's actually got worse, where they're saying that you get points for raping, or you get points for making people a widow and, taking their kids and their family and that kind of stuff. They have to make it absolutely gruesome. And that's what's being glorified now. So now, how is it possible that society are being exposed to that kind of stuff and that's not going to have an impact? Of course it's going to have an impact. Prophet ﷺ said, I'm just a man, and if people come up to me and they say that this is my right, another person says this is my right, he's going to go with what he thinks is more correct. And the person who's going to oppress the other person in society is filling himself and nourishing himself with the fire. There are three that are promised an increase. And this is taken from one of the ulama, and he was talking about different hadith here. But here, this is a general understanding that he gave. He said that there are three that are promised an increase in failure. They think that they're doing something to increase themselves, but Allah Jalla wa Ala has promised an opposite. So what are those three? That if a person oppresses, he will have his honor decreased. And the person who is patient will have his honor increased. Let's go back to this board here then. If a person wants to make dua against the oppressor, this person is oppressive because he thinks that he is stronger and he's more forceful and in authority. And by doing that, he thinks he's getting better and he's stronger. And the person below him is getting more and more oppressed and weaker. But in actual fact, this person is going down. And if this person is patient, Allah Jalla wa Ala has promised that He will give him honor. The person who spends to keep ties will not have his money be reduced. In actual fact, he will find barakah in the dunya and the akhirah in his wealth. But the person, the opposite, the person who spends money to cut ties of kinship, and we find that unfortunately, they start competing with one another and say, look at my car, it's better than you, look at you, and my house is better, and they're blood brothers and they're blood sisters, etc. Then Allah Jalla wa Ala has promised that there will be actually a decrease in wealth, because what they're doing is they're trying to use wealth to cut ties. The beggar will have his poverty increased the more he asks to become rich. Now here we're talking about a beggar as a person who's pretended to be poor. He has no reason to ask. The only reason why he's asking is so that he can accumulate more money. So Allah Jalla wa Ala has promised here that this person, he thinks he's getting richer. In actual fact, there's more poverty. Allah protects us. So here, what we learn from this is that the Prophet ﷺ, and if you look at all of these hadith here, maybe one or two are not, but all of them he's talking about the light on the Day of Judgment. And that's probably the most important thing that we can get from this whole lesson, talking about Amanah and Dhulm. Hadith 220, a believer continues to guard his faith and continues hoping for the mercy of Allah as long as he is not oppressive towards other people. Once he starts becoming oppressive and he thinks like an oppressor, then what will happen is that his light and his Eman in the dunya will be removed from him. Many people misappropriate Allah's property. These people will be casted into the hellfire on the day. What do you think that means, 221? They misappropriate Allah's property. I didn't translate this, by the way. I think some of it's quite... I'd object to some of what's been translated here. But I think you can kind of guess the meaning. What do you think? What do you think he means by this? If Allah has rizq for you in the dunya, and you take it oppressively, then you've actually had bad thoughts of Allah. Because you have not gone and gained it in a halal manner, in a way that Allah has prescribed for you. So what you are actually doing is you are actually challenging Allah in the way that He has dispersed His rizq. These people, on the Day of Judgment, again, no light. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah again, all good is found in being just and all evil is found in oppression. And this is a very important statement. And he explains it afterwards. For this reason, being just is obligatory, and this applies to all matters. And forbidden to all humans is oppressiveness, irrespective of whether a person is Muslim or not. He also said in another place, I tried looking for it but I couldn't find it, he said that Allah will give assistance to those people who are just, even if they are non-Muslims. Even if they are non-Muslims, they will make Allah... Iman here is the second thing. Justice is the primary thing. Not that they are better. It's not we're talking about better. The mu'min will always be better than a person who has no Iman. The person who has tawheed will always be better than the person, irrespective of whether this person is more just or not. But this is now going back to the first thing that we said, that the whole of the universe is built upon justice. And Allah Jalla wa Ala recognizes that. So even if he is a kafir who's building his country, his home, or his workplace, or his business, or wherever it is, upon justice, upon adl, then Allah will make that stand upon justice, because this is how it works. If the foundations are crooked, it doesn't matter if you've got Iman or not. Last chapter for today, the sanctity of the Muslim and the importance of preserving that sanctity and the explanation towards their rights and the compassion that one must have towards another. And this is a chapter here where the Prophet ﷺ has said in different narrations, some of them are here, some of them are not, where the Prophet ﷺ has incited us to have that sanctity and respect towards your brother Muslim, and he's tied it in with Eman. And there are many ayat here that Imam Nawawi himself brings. Whoever preserves the symbols of Allah, then this is from the goodness that Allah has given to him. And again, another ayah here is from the taqwa that he possesses. Allah is saying here in Surah Al-Hijr is that to be compassionate and to be humble and to be kind towards your fellow believers. And in this ayah of Ma'idah is a very important qa'idah that we find in the Sharia, which is that Islam comes to preserve human life. And when a person transgresses against one person, it's as if he is transgressed against the whole of humanity. Why? Because he himself then, once he does one person, he can go on to do other people. And he will not see anything wrong in it. And if he goes on to do other people will go on to do other people. And therefore, the whole of the dunya, the ard, will have spread corruption within it. Hadith number 222, the relationship of the believer with another believer is like a building. They strengthen one another. And the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ tied his fingers like that. That's how the believer is one another. Your right hand with your left hand. That's how we are. And this clearly shows that we have to be sincere. It's quite obvious. But also, would your right hand harm your left hand? Ibn Taymiyyah, there's a narration, or there's a statement that he has, and I should have put this here. He said, whenever you see something from your brother, it's like your right hand removing something impure from your left hand. Your own hand, you're not going to start hitting it, you're not going to start scratching it, you're not going to get a knife and cut it off. It's your own hand. This is how we are. So what you would do is probably get some soap, make it smell nice, make him smell nice. Use some water, use a sponge, use gentleness. Do it again and again and again until it finally goes away. Not start smacking it. That's not what you do to yourself. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ is telling us here, that your hand with another hand, that's how we are. Sincerity to all Muslims is to help and guide them to which is better for them. This is the whole point. The whole point, and this is a very important statement, this is why I've gone with this one here, is because it might seem very, very obvious and yeah, okay, well, I understand that. But unfortunately, how it's implemented is not very well understood. The objective is guidance. The objective is not to tarnish and to insult and to label and to broadcast and expose. That's not the point. The point here is, okay, I've seen something wrong in my brother. I've seen something wrong in myself. I've seen something wrong in my child. How can I guide them? Not how can I smack them or how can I, label them or expose them. The whole point here is that we bring everyone back so that we're here again. Whoever enters one of our mosques and pass through our market with an arrow. Okay, so now Prophet ﷺ is telling us, if you come to the masjid and you've got something which is harmful, and here the example is an arrow. This is the head of an arrow. The Prophet ﷺ said, don't walk through a crowded area with the arrow being exposed like that. Why? Because that is not sanctifying towards you, even if you don't mean it. Look at the mentality here. Just think, even if it came by accident, I'm going to scrape his garment, or scrape something, or even make him scared, the Prophet ﷺ said that's not the act of the believer. What you should do, if you have to, and you can't shield it, put your hand over the head, and then walk through the masjid or the marketplace. Ibn Muflih said it's absolutely obligatory, it's wajib. And this is the opinion of Imam Ahmad, to advise and repel harm from occurring to them. This is the bit that I wanted to highlight, even if they don't ask for it. Because here the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, if you're in the marketplace, if you're in the masjid, you're not going to know what's going on with you. That obligation and that responsibility lands on you. How can I benefit all these people? How can I repel all these people from something bad happening to them? That is how the Muslim believes, and that's how he respects the sanctity of others. The believer, in his mutual kindness and compassion and sympathy, are just like one body. If one of the limbs is suffering, then the whole body responds to it with wakefulness and fever. Imam al-Khattabi, when he was explaining this hadith, he told us something which is very important. That your soul and your soul and your soul and your soul, and everybody's souls here, this is why we're sitting here. It's not because of the way we look or our nationalities or anything. We are here because our souls have brought us here. That's what it is. It's the Eman that your soul is driving you to do khair and to do good. is putting us here. Imam al-Khattabi says, good souls recognize one another. And they want to work, and they want to assist, and they want to help each other to become better and to attain one body. And there is a hadith which talks about that to that effect. But I'll just put this statement here as an explanation for this narration. Hadith 225. He who does not show mercy to our youngers, whoever does not show mercy to others will not be shown mercy from Allah. I cannot, and this is a narration, these two narrations here, where the Prophet ﷺ was kissing a child. So a Bedouin man came and he goes, you kiss your child. What are you doing, kissing children? The Prophet said, what can I do if you don't have mercy and you have not been given compassion in your heart? He's not merciful to people, Allah will not be merciful to him. That's another narration where he was seeing people being harsh. Three characteristics, some of the ulama have said, three characteristics of those people who enter Jannah. And again, this is like similar to what I was saying before, where one of the scholars gave like a synopsis of a few different hadith. This is quite similar here. Three characteristics, and there's more, of people who enter Jannah. A person who is responsible and he fulfills that responsibility. Amanah. Someone who loves another because of his Eman. And someone who is good to his family. Now if you look at this is your public, this is your private, and this is your mindset. Yeah? So now when you wake up in the morning, you're not thinking about, what game shall I play today? You're thinking about how you can be responsible and how you can be sensible. So then when you go out in public, this is how you behave. And when you are in your private, that's how you behave. You do that, you'll be in Jannah. 228, when one of you leads a salah, then he should not make it long because there are people behind them who are weak and who are ill and who are old. And another narration, people who have things to do. 229, the Messenger of Allah would sometimes abstain from doing something that he wanted to do, but he wouldn't do it because he feared that people would then think that it is wajib. Now, and there's another narration here, the Prophet ﷺ used to fast continuously and even skip the suhoor or skip the futur and do it and combine the suhoor with the next futur, or with the suhoor with the futur, or the futur with the suhoor. And when they said, well, we want to do that, and he said, no, I'm not like you. Allah provides for me in a manner that He doesn't provide for you guys. And sometimes when he used to lead the prayer, he would want to make it long, but he'd make it short because he could hear a child crying. And sometimes when the Prophet ﷺ told us that whenever somebody offers the Fajr prayer in congregation, then he is in the protection of Allah, and don't let that protection be lost after the salah and throughout his day, and then he'll end up being thrown into the hellfire. Keep that momentum going, keep that going. What we learn from all of these here, we've talked about how the Prophet ﷺ was balanced in worship, and that balance is very important, that we don't go into extreme, and that is from the way of the Sunnah, and that's what will keep you upright and will enable you to do more, rather than exerting yourself, having a burst of a lot of good deeds and then spending a long time, months and months and months of a weak Iman. That's not the point. The point is that we develop slowly. And this is what we kind of see here also. But here, we see the Prophet ﷺ, the man who was kissing, no compassion, will then add to bad thoughts. That will then equal bad actions and bad statements. Once you have bad actions and bad statements, if you add into the equation disunity, as we see in this chapter here, then we will just see corruption spread the earth. And this all stems from sanctity and Eman and having love for Eman. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said compatibility between souls, and this is going back to what we were just saying a moment ago about the souls. So compatibility between souls is one of the strongest causes of love. Two souls, they love each other, they are strong in the Iman, and they love each other, and they want to cooperate with one another for the sake of Allah. Every person is attracted towards that which is compatible towards him, or with him. That is inevitable. And this compatibility is of two types. An original compatibility, which is ingrained in their essence, and that which comes later in their life. So now it could be that you were born with a good compatible nature, or you then attain a good compatible nature. So people become Muslim afterwards. People may be born Muslim. But the point here is that you will generally end up being compatible with those things that you are attracted to. If your aims match the aims of the one that you are compatible with, then there will be harmony. So just because a person says La ilaha illallah, you pray next to him, you stand next to him, you fast with him, you go hajj with him, but you don't know what his aims are. There could be nifaq. There might not be nifaq. There might be weakness of Eman, and there is no sanctity really inside. That will then affect the level of harmony. The stronger we are as individuals, then the stronger we will become as brothers, as a smaller. And then, if that spreads as a ummah, then there will be harmony. So that's the cure for all of this. A person says, let's go and fight Bashar, let's go and do this. And how is that going to do anything? History has told us time and time again, and the ummah from the very beginning were faced with oppression, but this is what saved them. Between yourselves. But if aims are different, if you are disunited, if there is a lackness, if there is a weakness, then that harmony will never exist. You will never be an ummah. Hadith 233. A Muslim is a brother for another Muslim. He doesn't wrong him, he doesn't betray him, he covers his faults. In another narration, he should assist him, he should give him nasiha, he should preserve his honor, his blood, his property. The Prophet ﷺ said, Taqwa ha huna. Taqwa is in your heart. It depends, where are you with that harmony towards your other brother? Do not envy one another, do not inflate prices one another, do not rip one another off. A Muslim should be a brother to another Muslim. Another narration, none of you shall truly believe, and this is what I was saying in the very beginning, this chapter here. The previous chapter we were talking about light of Eman. And that oppression is between you and Allah, and you will see that on Day of Judgment. Here you have a chance. Is you perfect your Eman. You perfect your Eman, this board will be wiped away from your deeds. And you will show sanctity for yourself, for your Lord, and for your brother Muslim. The more we do that individually, the more you will see Islam grow. The correct form of Islam. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ is saying here. None of you truly believe, you will not have Eman in yourself, in your communities, until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. Help your brother, even if he is being oppressed, or if he is the oppressor. How can you can help him if he's being oppressed. How can you help him if he's the oppressor himself? Advising him, making dua for him, using the soap and using the water. All of the above have a prohibition as well as a command. Ibn Abbas rahimahullah said, true brotherhood is based on Eman, and it's not based upon lineage, because Eman is what is permanent. Lineage will stop. When you pass away, your brother is no longer your brother. On the Day of Judgment, you might not even see that brother ever again. It's possible. Allah protect our families, but it's possible. It's very, very possible that you have a loved one here in the dunya, you think that you have Eman, you think that they might even have Eman, but you live in the same house, but you never see them again afterwards. This is what Ibn Abbas is saying here. True brotherhood is based on it, and it brings about positive outcomes. Not this. Not your lineage, not your geographical location, not the language you speak, etc. Two more hadith. A believer owes another believer 5 rights. If he is sick, he visits him. If he passes away, he follows his funeral. When he meets him, he gives him salam. If he gives him an invitation, he accepts to that invitation. And if he sneezes and he says, Alhamdulillah, then he should say, Yarhamukallah. And some of the narrations talk about 6 rights, and some of the narrations talk about 7 rights. Some of them talk about nasiha, some of them talk about different things. But the point here, the Prophet ﷺ is telling us here that we have rights upon one another. And if you look at these rights, some of the ulama have said, the greetings is talking about how you interact with one another. And that's why it's begun here. Because that's the default. And it could be now that I don't see this brother for a few days now. The default has lost. So now I ask about, where is he? He's not very well. Move on to the next stage. It could be that now happens worse and worse. That's the next stage. And some of the narrations talk about this being here, and this being before or with him being ill. So some of the ulama have said that there is a default, and it goes through stages. So then you say, accepting invitation, and then him saying, Yarhamukallah, but then eventually, he will pass away, and you will need to follow his janazah. Just to finish then, if a person is not well, this is a question, this is more of a rhetorical question here. If a person isn't well, genuinely, a person is in hospital or something, would you now think, okay, let me go see this brother and just start dissing him? Would you do that? Jubair's in hospital, may Allah preserve him. Let me go see this brother and go up to him now and have suspicion as to why he's in hospital. Have you been drinking? Have you been doing something? Were you doing something wrong that night? Yeah? And even if he did, Allah preserve him, even if he did, would it be productive for me to start abusing him and showing enmity and all that? I would really, now is a state of me showing sympathy towards him. If that's the case when it comes to physical illnesses, then how should it be when a person is going through a spiritual illness? Shouldn't be that we make dua for him, we show lenience towards him, we should have sabr with him, we show kindness to him, show him the beauty of Islam and try and bring him back, show him the sanctity that he can potentially deserve and have if he had a person of Eman next to him. It's about being supportive, and that's what these chapters here are talking about. It's how we can rectify ourselves from oppression, render back those trusts that are due to us from Allah, and ourselves showing self-respect, and showing respect for other people also, and preserving that sanctity that Islam came with. Ask Allah to make this beneficial for us all and give us tawfiq and Eman until He takes us and that He is happy with us. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Maybe any questions? Yeah, go on then. I've got two questions. Yeah. Yes. Then you give it back to their heirs. If you've got a physical property which belongs to somebody else, then you give it back to the people who deserve it. So that would be the heirs, the family. If it's something which is metaphorical as an honor, then you'd make dua for him. He's passed away, etc.
So if it's something physical and you can't give it back, then what? Let's say you don't have it with you anymore, or
then you need to try your best.
okay.
You need to try your best, or look at the equivalent of its value. So this is something I took from this brother. It's worth about £1. I'll go give him £1. If I can't get in touch with him, I'll give it to his family. If I can't give it to him, if I haven't got £1, then I'll go and work and get that £1 until I've got £1 spare. And if all of that, is not possible, then the ulama have said, then I would need to give it with the intention of sadaqah on his behalf. But if it comes about one day that you've heard of him, that he's still alive, or his heirs that you get in touch with, his family are there or something, then that sadaqah would then become your sadaqah, and you still need to give that money back to him. Yeah? So I think that kind of covers all the scenarios. Inshallah. Barakallah feekum. I'll see you guys next week.